All right, welcome back. Tonight we're going to be talking AWS and containers with Hart Hoover. Just some show notes. You can follow us on the Twitters at hashtag vBrownbag, or you can ask your questions there as well. We have other shows going on, so check those out at your various time slots. You can also download any of the previous recorded shows. Our guest tonight is Hart Hoover at H Hoover on Twitter. I'm your host, Ahmad Yunus, at Ahmad_Yunus on Twitter. And we have a co-host tonight, Kyle Ruddy, who'll be helping out as well for the first time. So with that, I'm going to make Hart the presenter. So now you should have
So hello there. Can everyone see my screen that says vBrownbag US?
yes.
All right, awesome. So as it was said, my name is Hart Hoover. You can find me on Twitter at HHoover. I'm here to talk about AWS and containers. So when you talk about containers on Amazon Web Services, you're typically talking about EC2 Container Service, otherwise known as ECS. ECS was launched pretty recently. It was in limited availability before that. Everyone seems to be very happy that it's launched now. There are lots of benefits to running on ECS. Basically, the first benefit is there's nothing extra to run. And what I mean by that is the ECS service is based on EC2. It runs directly on EC2 instances. So for example, if you were running something like Kubernetes, you would have Kubernetes services to manage. With ECS, there's only one thing to manage, and that is Docker. So as long as Docker is running, you're good to go. If Docker is not running, then you have other bigger problems. Another benefit of having AWS run containers for you is that AWS manages the scheduling for you, where those containers go in a cluster. We'll talk about clusters in a minute. You can define what kind of resources each container needs, but AWS will schedule where they go for you based on what the needs are, which is very nice. Another benefit, it's built on EC2, so it has all the built-in EC2 stuff, things like IAM roles, SSH keys, things like that, autoscale groups. So everything EC2 can do, ECS can do, because it's built on EC2. And like I was just mentioning, it integrates with other AWS services extremely well, because that's what Amazon does. Very, very deep integration with IAM. You can integrate with S3. We'll go through a demo in a little while on how it integrates with Elastic Beanstalk in particular. I have a demo that I'll show you where it's integrated with that. But like every other AWS service, it integrates together with the rest of the ecosystem extremely well. Last benefit, it's very extensible. So it has its own API, and the agent itself is open source. More on that in a second. The ECS agent is indeed on GitHub. So some ECS key components. What makes up ECS? First of all, there's the container instance. Again, it's an EC2 instance running Docker and running an Amazon ECS agent. Now the agent runs as a Docker container itself. So you have the infrastructure, the OS, the base OS for EC2, Docker running on that, and then you have Docker containers, right? So the ECS agent itself is a Docker container running on an EC2 instance. It talks out to the ECS service, which then determines what containers should run on that EC2 instance, how they should be scheduled, etc. And again, the ECS agent is open source. It is on GitHub. I want to take a look at it. Go. So here's the agent repo on GitHub. Looks like they have some pull requests open, pull requests accepted. Another key component of ECS is clusters. So that is literally EC2 instances grouped together. So you can tell EC2 how many servers you want in a cluster. It will run them all for you. You can determine cluster size based on autoscale group. You can have multiple Docker or servers running Docker ready for containers to run on them. Just because you have instances online doesn't necessarily mean they'll be running containers. You can have a minimum size larger than the amount of containers you wish to run at once. Another component of ECS is task definitions. So what the heck is that thing? It's just better to go directly to the doc instead of trying to fit it all on a slide. But basically it is JSON, JSON file where you determine how you would run a Docker container or group of containers. So for example, this is a single container. You give it a name. You tell it where to get the image from. So if the image is hosted on Docker Hub or Quay.io or some other registry, a private registry, if you have access to the EC2 container registry, maybe you have it there, you would put the URL to the image in this spot here. Here's where the scheduling gets interesting. So you can tell ECS how much CPU or memory that this container will require. Again, these kind of map directly to Docker commands. They're just in a JSON file that you give to the service. Another interesting one, so port mappings. This is where you would map a container port to a host port. So for example, if your web service in your container runs on 8080, but you want to expose that as 80, then you would do that here. What I like about this one is the essential flag. So essential literally means keep this thing running. So if you were following like the volume container, data volume container pattern, you would have essential set to false for the container exposing the volume, because it would just run once and then that's it. I've seen this used to download a repo and then share it to another container, like app versus web container, where the app container wouldn't necessarily be essential. Again, entry point, command, those should be self-explanatory from Docker flags. Environment, here you can pass in environment variables in your task file. You can also set mount points. So this is if you were sharing a host volume, the volume from the host or a different container, you would have those here. Volumes from and mount points are for managing volumes. Let's see other interesting ones here. ulimits, so you can put ulimits here as well. Those are the important parts. Let's see here. If you're using ECS, you're going to run into tasks and services. Tasks are, I mean, they use the same definition file, but a task is really more for batch processing jobs, and services are for long-running applications, so web applications, API services, things you would normally think of when you're running websites and such through Docker or web applications. You would run those as a service. If you just are crunching data or a bunch of the same container for a batch processing job, that would definitely be a task. And when you spin up an ECS cluster, you could put them in an autoscale group. They'll all be running Docker, they'll all be running the ECS agent, and they'll sit behind an elastic load balancer. So that is a very high-level overview of kind of ECS concepts and components. You can also run ECS inside of an Elastic Beanstalk deployment, which makes it very convenient if you're okay with Beanstalk, because Beanstalk will handle logging and some monitoring and alerting for you, as well as make sure that your application and load balancers are all set up correctly. You can also use Beanstalk for things like blue-green deployments or continuous deployments if you'd like, and it will deploy to EC2. Again, you can deploy directly to Beanstalk and it will deploy ECS resources for you, or you can have your testing framework do it as well. A tool like Jenkins or CircleCI or Travis, things like that. If it can talk to Beanstalk, you can deploy ECS resources. So Beanstalk will then deploy the EC2 resources required to run ECS. So without further ado, I have a small demo. So I have a very simple Python application. It has a Docker file, it has a task file. Let's see, I should show you that it's already running. Hello! So I have it already running. So this is literally like, hey, you're running Docker container. It's a sample application for Amazon that I just tweaked to say hello to you. So I'm now going to tweak it again. Oh noes. There we go. Don't do this at home, kids. What?
You mean don't do live demos?
Don't do live demos and don't push to master directly with a git commit-m update. That's really bad. Okay, so pushed, hooray. Yes, I've got some failed builds here. You may notice SA DevOps in the URL here. That is because I did this demo for the San Antonio DevOps meetup and didn't want to change it because I'm lazy. But it's the same demo. So CircleCI is my CI system of choice, mainly because it's free, which makes it really nice, and it's really fast. So this will not take long at all. But in the meantime, while that's doing its thing, I will show you my deploy file. So what this is doing is I have an S3 bucket already configured, and I'm setting my region and output to JSON so CircleCI can talk to it, copying all my stuff into a zip file, which I then upload to S3, and then I tell Beanstalk, hey, make me a new version with this new zip file, and deploy it. So not anything crazy happening here, but kind of cool. So Beanstalk is doing its thing. Let's look at all the events. So as you can see from a previous deploy when I was setting this up, runs it in a Docker container with the image that it built for me from my Docker file that I have in the repo, which is very handy. And I'm also impatient. Refresh. says it's done. Yay! So that just shows like a very simple, very simple deployment using continuous integration and continuous deployment to Beanstalk, which will then deploy ECS things for us, which is very nice. And then it shows in circle that everything passed. It says fixed. Something broke earlier, but that's okay. Fixed is just as good as passed. Cool. So that's all I have with regards to slides and demo. I am happy to answer questions about the service.
Well, as of right now, there's no questions.
Oh no.
And
That's because I answered everything that could possibly be asked. Just kidding.
you had an hour total, so anything else you want to show or talk about?
Uh, let's see. Give me one moment.
Sure. I promise, guys, we're still on on the air.
Yeah, sorry.
No worries.
I mean, I don't really have much else to show,
Okay.
really. That's kind of it.
No worries. I guess that just makes for a everybody gets more of their evening back, I guess.
Yeah,
All
no question. I was kind of expecting some questions, hoping for some questions,
right.
but that didn't work out.
No worries. Definitely a great presentation. I'm gonna go ahead and
Well, and actually, did you get asked any questions the last time you gave the presentation?
I did, but it was mostly Docker related questions. So um, not really container on on AWS specific. Um, Mostly like architecture questions around Docker. Um,
how about anybody in the audience want to be unmuted and maybe ask any live questions? Hmm. Well, doesn't look like it. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording.
okay.